Welcome to ISEE AWPC Career and Research Talk webinar. I'm Xiao and I'm your host today. I'm an executive counselor and the chair of the education subcommittee at ISEE AWPC. I work at the School of Population Health, UNSW, Sydney, Australia, as an associate professor in urban health and environment. The aim of the career and the research talk is to regularly connect ISEE AWPC members and inspire early and mid-career researchers in environmental epidemiology. I would like to thank for my colleagues and the ISEE AWPC executive counselors, Julie, Suko, Xiaowei, and Weiji's support. So today we have guest speaker, Professor HAIDONG from Fudan University, Shanghai, China, with us talking about his career path and sharing some of his research findings. So please follow up via Twitter at ISEE AWPC. You can see at my background, and also website for forthcoming events. And if you would like to provide feedback or nominate a speaker, please email me. I'll also put my email address here, xiaoqi.feng@unsw.edu.au. Before we start the seminar with HAIDONG, I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the Bountiful people who are the traditional custodians of the land of elders past and present on which this meeting takes place, Kensington, Sydney. Today's seminar has 3 parts. In the first 20 to 30 minutes, I will have a chat with HAIDONG about his career journey. Then HAIDONG will give a short presentation on his new research on air pollution and the daily mortality from PAPA to MCC study. You can ask questions by typing in the Q&A chat window. I will read out your question to HAIDONG for him to answer after his presentation. You can use your dial-in name or you can ask those questions as anonymous status. Professor HAIDONG obtained his PhD degree in 2003 at Fudan University in Shanghai, China. In 2007, he completed his postdoc training at the National Institute of Environmental Health Science in North Carolina, US. He's now the China Medical Board CMB Distinguished Professor of Environmental Health Sciences at Fudan University. He is a member of the China National Advisory Committee of Environment and Health and Associate Editor of Environmental Health Prospects and International Journal of Epidemiology. His research investigates how air pollution and climate change affect human health. Welcome, Professor HAIDONG.
Thank you, Fachi. Thank you.
So HAIDONG, we have this webinar. Normally we start some questions just to learn a little bit your career journey. And now just wondering, did you always know that you wanted to be a professor in environmental epidemiology, when you start your career?
Actually, not know from the very beginning. For me, my bachelor degree is on preventive medicine. In China, the career path of preventive medicine students, there are several options. One is to be a staff of local CDC or China CDC. The other one is to go to the government and become a government officer. And very few students, to be a professor in a university. I started to think about being a professor since I was a PhD student with my mentor, Professor Bingheng Chen. He really inspired me a lot. So after I studied with Professor Chen, I seriously thought about being a professor in the future. So that's my career path.
Thanks for sharing. I know you mentioned that you did your PhD in Fudan University. Was that in a faculty of medicine or in a different faculty? I'm just a bit curious that how your career path then focused on more environmental health. You mentioned your PhD supervisor, but I'm just wondering, except your PhD supervisor, is there any other people or your supervisor has been very crucial that for you later on continue choosing this career path?
Yeah, thanks for this question to introduce my university. I did my PhD in China, not in the US or in a European university. And FENG University is a pretty good university in China. We have actually, I have been in that university since I was a student almost 30 years ago. I did my bachelor degree there, my master degree there, and a PhD degree there. So my school now is School of Public Health. It's under School of Medicine, and the School of Medicine is under Fudan University. So we have Fudan University we have 4 campuses, and our campus, Fenling campus, is for medical school only. So I study in a medical school. I work now at a medical school. So that's the location. That's my university. And you mentioned about my PhD mentor. Yes, my PhD mentor, Bingheng Chen, she is a super nice lady. And actually, she not only inspired me a lot, she inspired a lot of female scientists in China. And to my understanding, many female scientists treat Professor Bingheng Chen as a model in their career. And Professor Bingheng Chen, she is a Chinese professor, but she has a lot of international background. She was working for WHO for over 10 years. So she has a lot of international perspective on environmental health, on environmental epidemiology and risk assessment. So although my PhD degree was received in China, but I did have a lot of opportunity to interact with international scientists. So that's why she influenced me so much. And after my PhD degree in China, I joined the NIEHS in North Carolina to do my postdoc training. And my mentor was Stephanie London. Stephanie was a super smart scientist, and her response to everything was so quick, and I really admired her a lot. And actually, Stephanie is not only an environmental epidemiologist, she has very broad research interest. I still remember when I worked with her, I received a lot of training in nutrition epidemiology and social epidemiology. I have several papers working with her about dietary fiber and cardiorespiratory outcome using a US cohort. And also, I did some very funny work when I worked with her. For example, I did some work about the effects of financial market on cardiovascular mortality using some very interesting data. So I think both mentors, I mean, for my PhD mentor and my postdoc mentor, they really inspired me a lot, and they were my model, I mean, to be a scientist.
Wonderful. You know, when you describe that your 2 mentors, and I can really see that you're looking back with a smile. You may not even realize that, but we can see it. And I can see you really enjoy the work and the guidance that they have provided to you. And I can hear that one thing that happened during your PhD is that the lab or the research group you're working, you had the opportunity to interact with a lot of scientists, not only in China, but overseas. And I think that's really important because I also do this for my own lab as well, the Power Lab, and bring overseas researchers to give talk and provide opportunities for our PhD or postdoc overseas. Obviously, hopefully pandemic will finish and we'll start again. And I think if we have the junior researcher or PhD candidate you're thinking of doing a PhD, those are some of the features you might want looking at when you're looking for the future job or say PhD opportunities and what the lab or the research group environment. You said that your mentor in US was very inspiring. Is that because their working attitude or their research productivity and or that how they treat their postdocs? Just if you can tell us a bit more, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, let me think. Okay, for my PhD mentor, Professor Ping Chen, and you know, my PhD was 20 years ago, and during that time, there are very few opportunity for our Chinese students to go to foreign countries, to interaction with other scientists in the world. And Professor Chen has a lot of connections with other institutes. I still remember the first time I attended an international conference. That's ISEE conference in the year 2001.
Wow.
I still remember I was the very few Asian faces during the meeting. The meeting was in Garmisch, Germany, and very few people from China or even from Asia attending that conference. And I was sent there. The money was from the Health Effects Institute, international agency. And I still remember Aaron Cohen giving me a check to support my trip to be there. So I think it's important for a mentor, to support their students to go to an international meeting and opportunity to learn from what's the current research status of your topic and what's going on in the world, not only in your own country. So I really learned a lot from my mentor. And for my postdoc mentor, Stephanie London, my institute, NIEHS, is a US government agency, and almost, I still remember the working location, North Carolina, is totally different with my city before, Shanghai. North Carolina was so silent. It's so peaceful. Shanghai is a city without, never sleep, but North Carolina is the ideal location for research. And I think I was very productive in North Carolina, and I listened to a lot of talks on different research topics, different fields, and I learned a lot. I think for young scientists, for young generation of scientists, it's good. It's extremely important to study and to work in different locations, enjoy different research cultures, and learn from different people.
Right. Thank you, Haidong. And I think your overseas experience and also with your PhD supervisors group, even go back 20 years, I can see that have really big impact on your career choices and probably how you navigate and lead your own team. So would it be okay if you can tell us a little bit your roles in the Fudan University? For example, what is the day-to-day function, your responsibility, and also what your research group mainly focused on, because I think you are our first speaker in the ISEE webinar, and I think people probably know there's a lot of new research done in China, especially environment. But if you can tell us a little bit the research environment in China, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, this is a very good opportunity for me to introduce the skills in China. Actually, my role at Fudan University, I am now a professor there, and in the meantime, I am associate dean for research in my school. So my job, in addition to my own work, research work on air pollution, on climate health, I spend a lot of time to recruit new professors for my school. So in China, I think the research environment in China improves a lot. during the past 20 years. Nowadays, in my school, we have faculties from.
Sorry, Haidong, we can't hear you suddenly.
Sorry, so you can hear me now?
Yes,
sorry,
I can. You just
yes.
lost a
Okay.
couple of sentences. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, our school, we for nowadays, our school, we have students from abroad. We have faculty members from abroad. So the research environment in China, especially top university like Tsinghua University, Peking University, or even Fudan, the research environment in China is very similar to university in Europe or in a US university. So we look forward to have new professors, new students from overseas. If you want to, work in China or work in Shanghai or work in Japan, please contact me, and I will be very happy to give you some advice how to work here, how to find a job here, and I look forward to have more for new members from all over the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, Haidong. I can really say that China's research environment have been improved dramatically, and especially now government and other research funding organizations and pour quite a lot of funding, and which in the past this may not the case. And I guess we have quite a lot of ISEE AWPC members. They might interested in say, what the working environment like in China. And also I really would like to say, I think Professor Kan is very humble here, that Fudan University is one of the top university in China. You might heard about like Tsinghua, Peking University. I think they are on the same kind of ranking. So it's really, really a great university if you're interested and in working in China in this area. Please contact Professor Kan and learn some tips and also opportunities. So I'm sure that there is a lot of challenges, facing as a research leader, not just a researcher. So can you tell us or share with us some of the biggest challenges that you have encountered as a research leader?
Okay. Oh, actually, I'm not a research leader. I'm just a professor here. For me, I think the challenge for me, I have a lot of, in China, one difficult thing is to keep balance between work and life. That's the difference between, I have experience in the US, and then I work in China. The difference in my memory is, in the US, you can keep the work and the life very balanced. You don't have to work after you leave your office. But in China, everybody is working very hard, and you have to work even after you leave your office. For me, I do research, I do teaching, and I also do some administration work for my school. So it's a little bit for me to make balance between work and life. Especially for me, my kids are still pretty young. So that's one challenge for me. I think another challenge for me is to recruit new professors for my school, especially in recent 2 years during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's difficult for us to recruit new professors, even from China or even from other places of the world. Yeah, we are trying to work very hard to have new persons. And I think still I want to say that the salary in Chinese universities increased a lot in the recent 10 years. So almost, for new professors here, the salary is almost the same as in European university. It's still low compared with the US university or even a university in Hong Kong. But it's good. To live, for living in Shanghai.
Great, thank you, Haidong. Oh, by the way, just sometimes I can't hear you very well. It's kind of cut off, but come back very soon. So I just want to know, maybe just May. But that's really interesting to learn, because a lot of people thought, in old China, people work in the university, although it's very prestigious position, but the income is not necessarily very high. But it's great to hear from Haidong that, the salary level, and also now there's normally for new professors that you have a amazing package to help people to start up. And I can see we have a lot of audience today from Asia Pacific. So if you're thinking about a career maybe in China, and or think about overseas career, and China is quite maybe close to your home, it's still in Asia, right? So there's a lot of opportunities there. And also, but one thing I can tell is that being Chinese researcher, and there's a culture being very humble. Like Haidong earlier said, I'm not a research leader. You absolutely is. You're not only a research leader, but probably in our field is a world leader in the environmental epidemiology. So that's very humble. I guess that's part of the culture in China. So I'm just wondering, what are some of the things you have found most rewarding about working as an environmental epidemiologist so far?
The most rewarding thing for me is our research funding can be applied to other places. For example, in my follow-up talk, I will talk about research funding from the MCC study. And the most happy thing for me is the funding of MCC study has been adopted by WHO to establish the new air quality guideline. So that's most exciting for research. Your job, your work is not only for funding, but also for the real world, can be used by the government, by an agency. That's the most exciting thing for the environmental epidemiologist. The other thing, the exciting thing is to have new generation of scientists. So that's a common thing for not only our field, but also for other fields. Yeah, new generation scientists is another most rewarding thing for me.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I feel the same. When you have the opportunity, which is rare, and see your research not only just published, get cited, but actually using for research for government policy, like say my research and my teams, we generally say green space is really good for our health, and we find out 30% is the mark that you need to have in the neighborhood. And where I am, the city of Sydney actually decided to use our research fundings and make a new policy. So hopefully, when you next time visit Sydney, you find here is more greener. So I do share the same as you, that find that if our research have any positive impact on our life, is really, really great. And I think this is something very rewarding, probably very common among scientists. I guess the next I want to learn a bit, just curious, given you're the top researcher in this field in China particularly, how do you see environmental epidemiology evolving over the next 10 years, especially in China and Asia area?
Okay, this is a very good question. And to my understanding, I think environmental epidemiology has been making great progress in the past 10 years. And the scientists are doing research on environmental epidemiology at a global scale instead of country scale or even local city scale. We are looking at the association of the environment and health outcome at a global scale. So that's one difference. If we compare the current research and the research 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Another thing is, I think, environment is changing always. So is environmental epidemiology. And the hot research topic of environmental epidemiology 20 years ago or 10 years ago, probably it was air pollution epidemiology. But nowadays, if you look at the papers, the hottest research topic is changing. Climate change, new pollutants like phthalates, plastic, particles, and other things, and also greenness, like you say. So research topic is changing. That's another thing I see in the past few years. And another thing I think the future, the trend is we have more opportunity to work with clinical medicine scientists and biology scientists. And I think more studies are being conducted, to link environment with clinical outcome, with subclinical outcome, and even with some biological mechanism. And there are, yeah, that's what I see in the past 10, what's happening during the past 10 years.
Fantastic. I like to say, that environment change all the time, and absolutely. Does not mean the other field doesn't move, but that's for sure. Many years ago, like air pollution may not a big concern in China, for example, but over time it's become, and hopefully in the coming year, such as air pollution, a lot of the negative environment things will going down, but we have a lot of positive things. So thank you. And I guess my last question today from May is that if you could speak to yourself when you were an earlier to medical researchers, knowing everything that you have done now, and what advice would you give yourself looking back?
Okay, advice to myself, I think.
Yeah, if
okay,
you know
everything. Several
great.
The one is, I will, the first small thing, probably it's a small thing, I will spend more time in English than, I still feel that English may, for our countries, for China, and even for Korean scientists or for Japanese scientists, English is a very, is a limitation for their career. So one small thing, I think, one small advice for young scientists is to spend more time on English learning. That's an extremely rewarding thing. You will benefit a lot from it in the future. Another thing I would like to tell myself is to attend more international meetings and have more chance to interact with other people, make new friends. That's extremely important for young researchers. I did, for the current environmental epidemiology research, it's very difficult for a single scientist to do research by himself or herself. You need collaborators, you need research resources from other people. You need to make new friends. You need to collaborate with the scientists over the world. So I will tell myself, to get more chance to interact with other people. Another thing for me, I think I have a weakness is, I should have learned something in methodology of epidemiology, which is a weakness of my current research. So if I have any chance, I will put more time and put more my time on that topic. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Haidong. I agree with you about communication, and not only just the English, the language, but how we present ourselves as a scientist. I met a lot of great scientists, and I really admire their research. But when it comes to general audience, and or say if media, and it's very difficult for them, some of them, to explain in a general way everyone understands. So talk about that. I just want to broadcast two opportunities. They're all free for ISEE members. So one is that you're probably aware there's ISEE conference hosted by Singapore University, National Singapore University in June. So there's an online workshop sponsored by ISEE called Improve Personal Brand to Leverage Networking Relationships. And this is where you get a bit training from professional people and to show how you could leverage your networking relationship. Like Haidong said, especially for early career research, and networking is very important. And even for an online conference, and how you potentially best get the network and you need to boost your research. And ISEE also have planned to have another workshop in second half year, particularly on communication. Again, we will invite professional trainer and train people from non-English speaking background. It's not teach you how to speak English. You're all very well done. Again, Haidong, you're very humble. Your English is excellent. It's more about say how you can make your explanation or present yourself very clear. For example, in a concise way. This is not only an issue, for a non-English speaker, even native English speaker have this problem as well. So I hope that many of you would be able to join us in June and also later this year for these workshops. Thank you very much, Haidong. Your answers are really authentic and inspiring, and I think hope this motivate and to a lot of our earlier researchers and also develop new research networks. So now I would like to over to you to learn more about your new research on air pollution and the daily mortality from PAPA to MCC study. Would you like to share your screen? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. So can I start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Xiaoqi. Yeah, it's really very happy to be here to share my recent research about air pollution and mortality. Actually, this is a very, very long story. I have been working on this topic for nearly over 20 years since I was a PhD student. And the PAPA project was initiated about 20 years ago, and MCC study is an ongoing one. So I will talk about this issue from the very beginning to now. So this is the outline. And between PAPA study and MCC study, I will also mention some middle scale research study in China or even in our East Asian region. So just some background information for the people who is not familiar with this field, air pollution epidemiology. For the study design for air pollution epidemiology generally can be divided into two areas. One is observational study, and the other one is intervention study. For an observational study, we can do short-term exposure study, including time series or classical solver study, and a panel study for biomarker, this biomarker as an outcome. And we also do long-term exposure study, that's cohort study. And for intervention study, we can conduct study at a population level, like the Beijing Olympic is a very excellent example for population level intervention study. And we can also conduct individual level intervention study, like human chamber study with ozone or PM2.5 or air purifier study. So that's some background information. And for air pollution time series study, this is a very, very old and very classic topic for our environmental epidemiology. And at the very beginning, there were a lot of single city studies in 1990s and in the early year of 2000. And then there are a lot of multi-city study in one country, and nowadays we have more and more multi-city studies in one or two countries. So what about the classical air pollution time series study? I will introduce some of the background here. NIMAP study is the most famous one actually. It's in the US. It's in the US, and the scientists there collect data from the largest US cities, and they have publications on New England Journal of Medicine and JAMA on PM2.5 on ozone. That's the first landmark study in this field. And AFEA is another study in Asia, air pollution on health European approach. And the first AFEA 1 study is 20 cities in Europe, and most cities are in Western European countries and Central Eastern European cities. Then there is a AFEA study combining North America and European cities. And very interesting finding from FENG is like health effects of PM10. You can see here, per unit increase 10 microgram per cubic meter in Canada is much larger in Canada compared with the European and the United States cities. Then there is a study. This is for ozone, and in Canada, the effects of ozone is very apparent. But for Europeans, the study result is still good. And for all the combined European and North American cities, the effects of ozone is also very significant. This is the multi-city study in Latin America. Not so much cities in that continent, but the results here is still significant for both particle and ozone. What about our area? We are in Asia. We are in Asia Pacific. The PAPA study, Public Health and Air Pollution in Asia study, is the first this type of study in our Asian region. The study was supported by the Health Effects Institute in the United States. And the first wave of PAPA study includes 4 Asian cities. Actually, the 3 is Chinese cities: Shanghai, Wuhan, Hong Kong, and the other one is Bangkok in Thailand. And Professor CM Wang from Hong Kong is the PI of the whole PAPA Asian 4 city study. And I personally was in charge of PAPA Shanghai study. And here, this is a picture of our group. Actually, I did not find a picture for Professor Chen from Wuhan group. This is CM Wang, who is a super nice gentleman. And this is our Thailand PI. This is me, and this is also from the Hong Kong team. And this gentleman and the lady is from India. So how about the research funding from PAPA? This is for PM10. And for the 3 Chinese cities, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Wuhan, the effects estimate were very similar. But for PM10 in Bangkok, the effect estimate was a little bit larger, compared with the 3 Chinese cities. And this is for SO2. The 3 Chinese cities, the health effects were very similar. Bangkok is a little bit different. NO2, Hong Kong and Shanghai is very similar. Wuhan, a little bit higher compared with Hong Kong, Shanghai. Bangkok is also a little bit different. For ozone, the 3 Chinese cities are very similar. Bangkok effect estimate was a little bit larger. So that's the major results for PAPA. And this is the exposure response function response curve for PM in the 4 Asian cities. Basically, during that time, we find the WHO air quality guideline or China national standard. Even below the criteria, the health effects of air pollution can still be observed. So that's for the PAPA study. Between PAPA and MCC studies, there are several multi-city studies in China or in Eastern Asian region. So this one is from China. It's 17 Chinese study. We have a name for that, CAPS, China Air Pollution Health Effects Study. And the study includes 16 Chinese cities with PM10, SO2, and ozone as the air pollutants, and the total mortality as the outcome. And we find the significant effects of air pollution on mortality rates in these Chinese cities. And this study, the study scale is a little bit larger. It includes 272 Chinese cities, and the air pollutants includes PM2.5 ozone and the other four criteria air pollutants. and the outcome is total and cost-specific mortality. And we have also a study in our East Asian region, and Professor Kim Ho is the PI for the heat study, health effects of air pollution and temperature in Asia. The study includes 7 Korean cities, 7 Japanese cities, and 17 China mainland cities, and 3 Taiwan cities. And actually, the data set in this data set has been included in the big MCC data set. MCC is a short name for multi-city, multi-country, and Antonio Gasparappi is the PI for the big international collaboration. Actually, the collaboration was initiated not for air pollution study, but for to study the effects of temperature and climate. And when I joined the MCC Collaborative Research Network, I find it is a unique opportunity to study the health effects of air pollution. So I propose to add air pollution as a component of MCC network. So we have a lot of follow-up work using MCC as a research basis to study the global health effects of air pollution. So that's one of our research findings. It's about particularly PM2.5 and PM10 in 6 continents, 24 countries, and 652 cities all over the world. We spend a lot of time to collect data from Africa, and for the data in Asia, in Europe, and in North America, the data are relatively easy to be collected. And we also spend a lot of time to have more air pollution data from South America. And so that's the study location of the MCC study. And the exposure includes 6 criteria pollutants, and the outcome includes both total and cost-specific mortality. For the statistic measures, this is very classic measures we use. It's 2-stage model. The first stage is at the city level. The second stage is to combine all the cities together. So this is the research funding from MCC. In different countries, we can see that for some countries, the effects of particle, for PM10 and PM2.5, are not significant. But for most of the countries, the effects were significant. And if we combine all the countries together, we could find significant, robust association between particle exposure and mortality risk. This is about the lag effects of PM10 and PM2.5. We examine lag 0, lag 1, and we also examine the multiple day exposure, and we find a significant association for all lag structure we examine. And the results for PM particle are pretty robust. That's the results after adjustment for other pollutants like ozone or NO2, SO2, or carbon monoxide. The results were pretty robust for particles. And this is another sensitivity analysis for temperature. We adjusted for temperature with different lag structure, and we also find the effects of particle were pretty robust, pretty stable. And a very interesting finding from this study is we divide since this is a global study, we divide the countries by the definition of WHO. For example, we are from West Pacific region, and one good thing for our region is the effects estimate for PM10 or even for PM2.5. the per unit increase, the effect at the mortality risk increase is smaller compared with the countries in Europe or in America. And this is one of our key findings. It's about exposure response relationship. This is for PM10 and this is for PM2.5. And this different line here means different air quality guidelines or air quality standard. And this is the WHO AQG AQG 2005, and we can find even below the WHO AQG, the PM2.5 still has significant association with increased mortality risk. For other air quality guidelines like US NAAQS or China air quality standard, China has the air quality standard is the most higher compared with the US or the WHO standard. The standard in China cannot protect human health very well. I think it's the evidence is very, very clear. So that's the editorial from John Barnes, who is a professor from UC Berkeley, and he published an editorial about the MCC PM2.5 study on New England Journal of Medicine, and he said this study provides the strongest evidence to date about PM exposure and the daily mortality risk. And this research finding has a lot of policy implications, especially here. During the last year, the World Health Organization updated its global air quality guidelines. And this is the guideline in the year 2005, and this is the guideline in the last year. And for daily PM2.5 guideline, it was reduced from 25 to 15 micrograms per cubic meter. And I think our findings, our MCC PM2.5, especially this exposure response curve, provide very strong evidence for WHO to reduce its guideline. And the MCC study is not over, it's an ongoing one. For other proteins, we have publications on BMJ, 2BM. Ozone study was published on BMJ, NO2 study was also published on BMJ. For carbon monoxide study, it was published by Lancet Planetary Health. And we have also a very interesting paper about PM2.5 components on the journal Epidemiology this year. And the cost particle paper is under revision in the Blue Journal. So that's the ongoing, the current progress of the MCC air pollution project. And one thing I want to mention is, since our MCC study is a global study, it provides a lot of inspiration for the future air pollution research. For example, here is the health effects of particles for PM10, PM2.5, and this is for NO2. And we can see that the health effects of NO2, the health effects of NO2 in different countries, the difference was not so much. For different countries, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, China, the effects estimate were very, very similar. But for PM, the effect estimate changed so much. The variability is so big. What's the reason for that? I think it may have implication for the air quality management, because PM2.5 compared with NO2, NO2 is very pure. But for PM2.5, its chemical component is so complex, different component. And this is a very interesting paper. It's linked our study finding of PM2.5 with the PM components in different countries. Yeah, we can see that. For example, for the country, you can see that Greece, the particle from dust is much larger in Greece compared with other countries, especially in US or in European countries. Different countries with different components, different source, then their health effects of air pollution might be so different. So that's the finding from PM2 component. So we also wrote an editorial on Nature 3 years ago to say that air pollution is a global problem, but it's fixed probably. I mean, the air quality management in different countries, they need local fix because in different countries, the source is different, the component is different, the toxic is also probably different. The health effects, the population health effects might be also effect. So we need to identify the source or the component which is most hazardous to human health and making progress in control of specific source. So that's one piece, I mean, from our MCC global studies. So I will conclude here. The multi-city country studies, I mean, both PAPA and the MCC study provide very robust evidence on the association between air pollution and the mortality risk. But a lot of things we need to do in the future. We need to link PM component, PM source with human health. We need more cohort study in our region. I mean, in US or in Europe, there are a lot of cohort study already, but in India, in China, in our Asian Pacific region, the cohort study under relative high concentration are not enough. We also need accountability study to have more causal inference, I mean, to link air pollution with health outcome. And also we need to consider the interaction with climate. And we also need to have more study on the biological mechanism of complex air pollution. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the people who helped us a lot. It's for PAPA study, the Health Effects of Institute, Aaron Cohen, Dan, Bob, and Wei Huang, now she is in PKU, helped us so much. And for the MCC team, I would like to acknowledge Antonio, Francisco, Anna, and Joaquin, and also my colleagues and my students at Fudan University. And thank you so much for your listening. Thank you. Chachi, I'm done.
Great. Thank you very much. That was really, really interesting studies that have done by your team and also your partners. And I like those fancy names, Papa. I remember last time I went to Mark and he has a pasta study. There's a lot of really great names as well. And I just want to tell the audience that if you have questions, please raise it via the Q&A session. You can use the anonymous function, which there's a tick box, or you can show your name. And we don't have a lot of time for Q&A today, but if you don't mind, Haidong, we might slightly have a bit longer if you just so we can answer a few questions from our audience. So the first question is here: is it rare for Westerners to work as environmental epidemiologists in China? I mean, working more than a brief visit, such as Westerners as a tenured member of staff employed at leading Chinese university. Are there any particular challenges beyond? Presumably, they need to speak Mandarin fluently, social and economic challenges, and research fundings. Over to you, Haidong.
Okay. In the past days, it's a problem, but nowadays it's not a problem. And we have, actually, I personally, we have faculty members from Canada, and we have another one from, we're going to recruit one new professor from Africa. In China, you can teach English. At least in my university, you can teach English. You can apply funding in English, and you can, in Shanghai, you can do everything in English, and you are much more welcome to speak in English or work in English in Shanghai or in my university. So it's not a problem anymore. But it was a problem 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But nowadays, it was not a problem. So welcome. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great to hear. I can see during our presentation talk, when more and more people join, and clearly you're very popular. And also the topics, and I guess some of you might interest even in visiting China after the pandemic and working there. So we have another question from our audience. Environmental epidemiologists have done a good job at defining the air pollution problem. The problem is now widely recognized. What role can environmental epidemiologists play in defining practical and effective solutions to air pollution?
That's a question. Actually, yeah, I make this type of question very often in China, and people always say that you can just control air pollution. No need to do air pollution and health study. Just control air pollution. That's enough. Yeah, it looks plausible, looks reasonable, I think. But I think there are several things we environmental epidemiologists can play a very important role. The first is, in China, at least in China, air quality standard is for air quality management standard is extremely important. I think in China, why in China, the air quality in China in the past 10 years improved so much? I think one critical role is the air quality standard in the year 2011. In a year, the Chinese government released a new air quality standard. What is the basis for the new air quality standard in China? It's the health research. It's the WHO air quality guideline. It's the research from China scientists on health effects of air pollution in China. So I think environmental epidemiologists can at least play several roles for air pollution control in China. The first is to establish the air quality standard in China. The second thing is, we need to, in China, we have two big policy related things. One is Beautiful China, another thing is Health China. And now Chinese government has a big need to put health in every policy for the government policy. So health now is everywhere in the China policy, not only for air quality, but also for average China. So we environmental epidemiologists can really do a lot of things for that. And I can also share some information is, the Chinese central government is still very, very, they think very high. They are very interested in the environmental epidemiology research, and our central government can provide a lot of money on the field of environmental epidemiology. So I think there are a lot of research opportunities in China in this field.
Fantastic. Oh, we have more questions, and people said, cool discussion, thank you. I'm quite interested in doing environmental epi research in China for a sabbatical, so which means they have a short time period, with it maybe 3.5 years. Any tips on how to get started with planning? Super interested to know if there are fellowships available.
Yes, in my university, our university is FENG University. We have FENG Fellow, and we can provide support for international background professors to work for half a year, 1 year. That's very flexible. And yeah, you are extremely welcome to work for a short time in China. I think in other Chinese universities like PKU, Peking University, or Tsinghua University, they have some kind of very similar arrangement policy for that. And you can contact me if you are interested in FENG Fellow. Yeah, we have a special program for that, FENG Fellow.
Great. Wow, fantastic, Haidong. I think you're going to get a lot of emails after this call.
Thank you.
And people will say, I want to study in Fudan. Is this okay, Haidong, if I share your email address with
Sure, no
people
problem.
so they know how
Yes.
they can reach to you? So I just typed in Professor Haidong Kan's email address here. And if you're interested in those opportunities in China, and particularly in Fudan University, as Professor Kan kindly offered that he could potentially speak to you, please email him.
Yeah, I can make collections with my university. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I guess we may have a space for one more question if you would like to ask a question, but obviously you can always contact Professor Kan. I do have a question while waiting. You mentioned all this great, international research collaboration, and I can see they're all big studies. What are the challenges? And especially in the last 2 years, and because this pandemic is not like before, you can fly to each other's country or cities, but even just in general before pandemic, because I know I run a few international studies, and it's not easy given the time zone difference, the culture, and also, the study itself. If you could share us a little bit the challenges and also how you potentially resolve them, that would be great, because especially for our earlier researchers who might have some international collaborations in the future, think about develop it, it would be good to let them know. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very good question. Actually, to do international study, it has been always difficult. And I still remember, for the public study, like 20 years ago, the Health Effects Institute put a lot of resources on the international collaboration. They even organize a SEEP advisory group for our study, and including some top professors, Frank Pfizer, or some top professors in the United States to help us for the collaboration of paper. And for MCC study, I think one thing is one useful experience for me is, simple study design might be a practical design. Why? There are a lot of international collaboration study. Why time series study can be relatively easy to be conducted, because the study design is simple. And for different countries, it's easy for the local collaborator to collect the local data in a relative simple way. And for the fantastic complex study design, it's really difficult to have international collaboration, because different people have different data. It's data cleaning, data framework is not to be coordinated very easily. And for me, I think to get started with a relatively simple study design, and if you get started, you can make progress. Get started is the most important thing to do international collaboration. And with the simple way, you can conduct more complex work in the future.
Great. I couldn't agree more, Haidong, because I think this is a less is more situation, especially when you have more than one country and a lot of methodology or data availability and even policies restrictions, and that probably start from some low hanging fruit would be able to get the research progress moving forward. So that's really great tips. I think only you have experience that you can see that. And I hope this is helpful to our earlier researchers who are about to or plan to have some international research collaborations. I don't see there's some more question come in, and I think you probably will get a lot of emails and today and this week. And I would like to thank you, Haidong, for your very valuable 1 hour and with us. And also I would like to thank to our audience and our members who dialed in today. But before we finish today's webinar, and I would like to promote again about the composite building opportunities sponsored and supported by ISEE AWC in the coming months. And one is I mentioned earlier is the ISEE AWPC Conference 2022 hosted by National University of Singapore. And we will have a free workshop for all ISEE AWPC members on improved personal brand to leverage networking relationship. From today's HAIDONG talk, we already know this is very important about networking. This will be trained by a professional trainer. So you can go into the website, ISEE 2022. You can Google it, and you must register the workshop enabled to participant. And also in the second half year, we will plan to have another workshop hosted by ISEAWPC on communication, which is on improving scientific communication. So which is not say teach you how to speak English, but how you present yourself in English and in scientific way, which general audience would understand you better. So watch this space and follow us on Twitter. I'm Xiao. See you all at the next ISEAWPC Education and Capacity Building event. Thank you. Have a good day.
Goodbye. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.